Friends, welcome back to the channel. Today, we dive into one of the most critical stories shaping India's economic and geopolitical landscape right now. India has been hit hard by the doubling of tariffs imposed by the United States. And while these tariffs create real pressure on Indian exports and businesses, the government has announced a sweeping set of tax cuts on hundreds of goods. The question is, will these tax cuts actually cushion the blow, protect the economy, and safeguard ordinary citizens from rising costs? Or will they only buy time in a much larger trade war that India cannot fully escape? Stay tuned, because in this deep dive analysis, we are going to break down what these changes mean for Indian consumers, Indian businesses, and India's role in the global economy. By the end of this video, you'll see not only the economic calculations behind this move, but also the political, social, and international dimensions that explain why this story is so much bigger than it looks on the surface. So let's begin at the heart of the matter. The U.S. under Donald Trump has doubled tariffs on a wide range of Indian goods. Tariffs, as you know, are essentially taxes placed on imports. When Indian exporters send goods like textiles, steel, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, or consumer products to the American market, they now face double the cost at the U.S. border. That makes Indian goods more expensive and less competitive compared to products from other countries. For a country like India, which relies heavily on the U.S. as one of its top trading partners, this is no small setback. It affects jobs, industries, and the balance of trade. In response, India had two choices: fight back with its own retaliatory tariffs, or try to soften the internal blow for its citizens and businesses. What the Modi government has chosen is a somewhat balanced path. Instead of slapping retaliatory tariffs that might escalate the conflict into a full-scale trade war, India has decided to cut its own domestic taxes on hundreds of consumer goods. That means everything from household items, food products, and appliances to clothing and daily necessities are going to be cheaper for the average citizen. The Goods and Services Tax, or GST, which once had a very complex structure, has been streamlined. Instead of multiple slabs that confused consumers and complicated the system, most items now fall into just two categories: 5% and 18%. This simplification is not just about easing business. It's also about giving relief to millions of households already struggling with inflation. Now, some of you may be wondering, how exactly do domestic tax cuts cushion the blow of American tariffs? After all, tariffs are imposed by the United States, not India. The answer lies in the way economies are interconnected. When tariffs hit Indian exporters, companies lose revenue. That often means layoffs, wage cuts, or higher domestic prices to make up for lost profits. Consumers in India end up feeling the pressure indirectly, either through unemployment or higher prices in their local markets. By cutting domestic taxes, the government hopes to offset these negative effects. Lower taxes mean cheaper goods, which keeps domestic demand alive. In other words, if Indian exporters can't sell as much abroad, at least they won't lose their entire business because people at home are still buying. But make no mistake, this is not just about economics, it's also about politics. We are entering a festive season in India, and tax cuts at this moment serve a dual purpose. They ease economic pressure on households and they create political goodwill for the government. It is, without doubt, a calculated move. When the average family sees that their grocery bill, their clothing, and even some appliances are cheaper because taxes have been cut, it creates a sense that the government is standing by them during difficult times. And in the political world, optics matter as much as outcomes. However, the question we need to ask is whether these tax cuts are a sustainable solution or just a temporary bandage. Because, let's be clear, American tariffs are not going away tomorrow. The Trump administration has signaled that it views tariffs as a core tool of its economic policy, and India is not the only country facing this pressure. China, the European Union, Mexico, all of them, are facing similar tactics. The U.S. strategy is very simple: put America first by making imports. more expensive, and forcing companies to shift production either back to the United States or to countries willing to accept tougher deals. For India, this means we need a long-term strategy that goes far beyond tax cuts. So, what could that strategy look like? First, India needs to diversify its export markets. We cannot afford to rely so heavily on the US for trade. The good news is that India is already moving in this direction. Negotiations with the European Union on a free trade agreement are in advanced stages. Talks with the United Kingdom, the UAE, and other partners are ongoing. If these deals come through, Indian exporters will have more markets to sell to, reducing dependence on any single country. That makes India more resilient to tariff shocks. Second, India must boost its domestic manufacturing base. Initiatives like Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat are not just slogans, they are survival strategies in a world where protectionism is rising. If India can produce more domestically and substitute imports with local goods, then tariffs lose much of their sting. And the tax cuts on consumer goods directly encourage this process by making local products more affordable. Third, technology and innovation must play a role. Instead of competing purely on low costs, India has to compete on quality, innovation, and efficiency. If Indian goods are seen as high-tech, reliable, and irreplaceable, then even tariffs won't stop global buyers from purchasing them. For example, in the pharmaceutical sector, India has already proven that it is the pharmacy of the world. Despite US tariffs, Indian medicines are still in demand because alternatives are limited. That is the model India must replicate in other industries. Let us pause here and ask the critical question: how does all this impact the ordinary Indian citizen? For most families, the immediate impact will be visible in lower prices on essential goods. When you walk into a store after September 22nd and see that your grocery bill has gone down because GST is lower, that is real relief. For businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, the simplified tax structure means less paperwork, fewer compliance headaches, and more room to breathe in a tough global climate. But the long-term question remains: will these measures be enough to protect jobs, to keep factories running, and to prevent India from losing its export competitiveness? That's something we'll only know in the coming months. The other point we must not ignore is the psychological effect of this move. Confidence is one of the most important drivers of economic activity. If people feel optimistic about the future, they spend more, invest more, and take more risks that fuel growth. By announcing tax cuts at a time of global uncertainty, the government is sending a signal: don't panic, we have your back. Whether that signal is strong enough to override the fear created by US tariffs is the key question. As we move forward, keep in mind that this story is not just about economics, it's about power. The US tariffs are not just about protecting American workers. They are about asserting American dominance in global trade. India's tax cuts, on the other hand, are not just about helping consumers. They are about showing resilience, adaptability, and the ability to turn adversity into opportunity. This clash of strategies is what makes this moment so historic. And as viewers of this channel, you know that geopolitics and economics are deeply interconnected. This is not just about trade numbers, it's about alliances, partnerships, and the future of global leadership. If India plays its cards right, these challenges could actually accelerate our rise as a global economic power. If not, we risk being squeezed between competing giants. So the real question we leave you with today is this: will India's tax cuts be remembered as a smart move that shielded its economy during a turbulent time? Or as a temporary patch that couldn't stop the storm? Time will tell, but one thing is clear: India is not standing still. And in a world of trade wars, tariff battles, and shifting alliances, standing still is the worst thing you can do.